there's going to be someone who's going to welcome you guys. I just want to speak briefly about what we are here for. We always know that we are here for Dr. Umar's lecture about the imperative of African-centered education in Azania. So we'll dwell more in that. But we've all come because of the black cause, we've all come because of black consciousness, we've all come because of Steve Biko, Robert Sobukwe, and all those unsung heroes and heroines of our time for us. So, I'm just going to introduce briefly the program. First of all, there's the opening, which will be done by Brother Afiwe. Is he with us? Just to locate him about okay. We'll be doing the opening and welcome, Brother Afiwe. And then we will also be doing the launch of the Afrocentric study group by Brother African Singh, who is also on his way to be outside. And then introduction of the lecture, which is what we are here for. Now, in saying this is a lecture, initially as the organizing team, we said it's a speaking pilgrimage because we see it as a sign of the soul coming back home. So we welcome you back home. We're here to share. We are here to engage, but we are home. So, introduction of the lecture will be done by Dr. Olu, who is behind me. Then we'll get into the lecture, which we are all looking forward to. We are all here because of that. So we are looking forward to that. And then we'll be facilitating a question and answer session briefly. Just a couple of questions so that you can interact with the doctor. We know we've got the same ideologies, the same frame of mind. So just to pick his brain and see what we can learn, what we can teach each other. I see Brother Afiwe is here. And then we'll be doing thanks and closure, which will be done by Oras Mosai. So we'll get into the opening. Brother Afiwe, are you ready? Okay, so we welcome you just with a round of applause.
Our divine ancestors, our kings and queens, to our warriors of Africa. My responsibility is to welcome abantu abakhona apha namhlanje. But before we proceeded with the welcoming of abantu naye wonke umuntu okhona, including our guest, our brother, our African blood brethren, Brother Umar Ifatunde, one of our African warriors, one of those compromise the integrity and the dignity of Africa. Abantu abaku front line to make sure that Africa is being totally liberated from the machinery of white supremacy. Yeah. We really welcome our African blood brethren. As African people, we ask our ancestors to guide us kuyo yonke into esiyenzayo. Nalo msebenzi sinawo namhlanje, sithi kuqamata, sithi kumwari, sithi oltumare, amenra, bize kuthi nguja, nangeliphi igama umbiza ngalo. Saba invite abakhulu ukuthi babe nathi basipha amandla. Especially our African blood brethren. Xa befika abantu ekhaya, abantu bangaphandle ekhaya bayabahlonipha. Because abantu abasuka ngaphandle xa befika umele ukuthi bamkele ngezandla ezishushu. That we welcome our African brother, son of the soil, umhlaba wokhokho bakhe. After a separation, 500 years. We've been separated for more than 500 years actually, with our African family abroad. People were taken away by force to be enslaved by the European colonialists to serve the interest of the European Empire, which is parasitic, vampiric, and blood-sucking. So I welcome everyone. We event esinayo namhlanje. Give respect also to the organizers of the event, the Afrocentric collective, together with our mother, Mama Aima, who was very instrumental to bring Brother Umar up Ekai. Give thanks, Mother. And really, in this time, I personally need clarity as African people, a direction, because we are lost. Many of us, not all of us. That's right. We are consumed by white supremacy. It's a function within the white supremacy structure to preserve, to sustain, and to advance the interest of the white supremacists. We have lost our mission, we have lost our vision. Now we are being directed by our enemies on how to function, on how to operate. This is the time that we know warriors before Tina, Abo Marcus Garvey, Abo Tata Usobukwe, Abo Bandu Biko, Abo Beteta, the Africa for the Africans. Abo Beteta we could build a nation for black people. For black people.
Mine is very short, it's very brief. I'll just give you a brief background on how did we came to be an Afrocentric study group. This academic society that was just formed in the beginning of the year. So I won't go long because yes, speaker must have enough time to send the message as he has prepared it. Without wasting any time, let me go straight to what I came here to do. The brief background, I will start by saying, we started this group towards the end of the first semester. What happened is that since I came here in 2012, this is my 4th year. Since I arrived in this institution of higher learning, I made sure that I use these what are called rivers of knowledge or fountains of knowledge, a library and a laboratory for internet access to access some information. So due to the self-study that we've conducted as individual members, we became inspired by African intellectuals and scholars from all over the world, especially from the United States, with grandmaster teachers like Dr. John Henry Clark, Dr. Joseph Bin Buchanan, Dr. Molefe Kende Asante, Dr. Umar Johnson, Mama Marimba, Baba Baruti, and many others that inspired and introduced to us the concept of an African-centered education as the solution to the African problem of education.
Thank you, brothers and sisters. It's an honor to be here at the University of Fort Hare. to share some brief words with you. I'm going to speak for approximately an hour because we want to leave opportunity for questions and answers when I'm done, as that's always my most important part of the program, because it gives me an opportunity to gain some insight into what you think, as well as you can gain further insight into what I think based on my comments. My family, the paternal lineage of my family, was brought to America in 1701. A black man by the name of Bailey was kidnapped and sold to an enslaver who floated him over to America and enslaved him in Talbot County, Eastern Shore. That was 1701, over 300 years ago. He married an African woman in Maryland by the name of Selah, for whom my 4-year-old daughter is named. In 1745, they had a daughter by the name of Jenny. And in 1774, 2 years before Thomas Jefferson declared independence from Britain, Grandma Jenny gave birth to Grandma Betsy. Grandma Betsy married a free black man by the name of Isaac. In the 13 colonies in America, the condition of a child was dependent upon the condition of the mother. Although Grandpa Isaac was free, Grandma Betsy was not. Therefore, none of their 12 children would be either. I want to draw your attention to 2 daughters in particular. One was named Harriet, and one was named Betsy, after her mother. These 2 sisters were both raped by the slave master who owned our family, an Irishman by the name of Aaron Anthony. As a result of the rape, Aunt Harriet in 1818 gave birth to the greatest black leader in American history. His name was Frederick Augustus Washington Bailey. At the age of 20, Uncle Fred escaped from slavery. He started off through Philadelphia, then to New York, and then further on to upstate New York. He dropped the family name Bailey and picked up Douglass. It was suggested to him because of the fugitive slave law in America. Any slave master could track their slave down and bring them back to bondage, even if that slave had escaped into a free state. So Frederick Bailey became Frederick Douglass, the only leader in American history who was both a leader during slavery and in freedom. When you talk about abolition, when you talk about civil rights, when you talk about the fight for African people, no name rings louder than that of Frederick Douglass. The next year after his mother, my Aunt Harriet was raped. Her little sister, young Betsy, was also raped. So in 1819, the year after Frederick's birth, my great-great-great-great-grandfather, 4 times great, Stephen Henry Bailey, was born as a result of that rape. He wasn't so lucky as his older brother to run away to freedom. He remained a slave in Talbot County, Eastern Shore, Maryland. He married a black woman by the name of Caroline. Their firstborn son was George Washington Bailey, my 3 times great-grandfather and the first black public school teacher in Eastern Shore, Maryland. When the Civil War broke out, Uncle Frederick did not fight, but he sent his 2 oldest sons, Louis and Charles. They went north to Massachusetts. They enrolled in the 54th Colored Regiment, which was the most dangerous regiment in the Civil War. If you've ever seen the movie Glory captures the lives of the 2 oldest sons of Frederick Douglass. My grandfather Stephen and his son, my grandfather George, they fought side by side in the United States Colored Troops of Maryland. When the Civil War was over, Grandpa George married Grandmama Annie. Grandmama Annie was the niece to Bishop Alexander Wayman, the 7th bishop under Richard Island in the African Methodist Episcopal Church founded in America. They had a daughter by the name of Caroline, who moved to Philadelphia from Maryland, and she had a daughter by the name of Vivian. And Vivian married a Spanish-speaking Cuban immigrant named Cicero, an African Cuban. One of their children was named Ida. Ida married James Johnson. They had a son named Jamal. Jamal married Barbara. And on August the 21st of 1974, the anniversary of the Nat Turner insurrection, the Haitian Revolution, the George Jackson prison assassination, and the Frederick Douglass Fugitive Slave Convention, Dr. Umar Johnson was born in North Philadelphia. I give you my family history to let you all know here today, right now up front, that I don't need your permission to be African. I know I'm African. Education. In America, I'm a doctor of clinical psychology. I'm a doctor of school psychology. I'm a certified school psychologist. My private work is in evaluating children, our children primarily, to determine whether or not they need special education service. The so-called ADHD, the so-called learning disability, the so-called emotional disturbances. It's my job to evaluate. I give the intelligence test, the achievement test, the psychological measures, the emotional measures, the adaptive behavior measures, the visual motor measures, test. And I decide who goes into special education. You have special education in South Africa. And one thing you need to be clear of, especially those of you who have children, that special education is a weapon of apartheid. It is a way of taking African children and subjecting them to an inferior education, not based on color, but based on perceived disability. This is important for you to understand, because there is not a single psychological diagnosis that is scientifically determined, except for maybe schizophrenia. When we diagnose depression, when we diagnose ADHD, when we diagnose the learning disability, we are only offering our professional opinion. A mental health diagnosis is not the same as a biological diagnosis. With a biological diagnosis, there's an X-ray, there's a CAT scan, there's an MRI, there is a urine sample, there's a blood screening, there's something objective to determine that you have cancer, high blood pressure, heart disease. But when someone says you have a learning disability, you have ADHD, that's not based on objective evidence, that's based on the opinion of the white psychologist. Which begs the question, why do African people take African children to a white man to solve an African problem that the white man created? Something has to be asked about that. Brothers and sisters, be clear about something. No matter how revolutionary you conceive yourself to be, no matter how revolutionary I conceive myself to be, every last one of us was molded and fashioned under the power structure, be it American apartheid, American apartheid or South African apartheid. That is to say that there's nobody sitting here today, including myself, who does not suffer to some extent from post-traumatic slavery disease or post-traumatic apartheid disease or post-traumatic neocolonialism disease. It's important to recognize that the white man that you fought so hard to free yourself from apartheid, that white man still exists, not only in the society, but inside of you. The greatest accomplishment of white supremacy is that it made its victims a willing accomplice in their own extermination. We participate pro bono in the protection of white supremacy. Let's be clear. Many of you here are university students. I supported the Fees Must Fall movement. Still do. It was necessary, because I understood the purpose of hiking the fees in the first place was to put education beyond the reach of Africans, so when people ask why we don't have more doctors, lawyers, and engineers, they can simply say your people aren't interested in getting education. So under neo-apartheid, they have to make it look like you're the reason you're down, not because they kept you down. So it was important for them to fight it. But that's not the only struggle. You can fight to get your bachelor's all day. We did it in America. You can fight to get your master's degree all day. Your doctorate, we did it in America. But now we have a problem in the United States where we have over 2 million Africans in America with degrees who cannot find work. They're homeless, unemployed, in the soup kitchen. Fighting for the right to learn is not fighting for the right for an equal opportunity for the economic wealth of South Africa. We don't need more degrees, we need the wealth. The white man is a slick demon. He's reduced freedom in South Africa to having the vote. He's reduced freedom in South Africa to the right to go to school. Freedom isn't the right to vote. Africa doesn't need democracy. Africa needs development. And the people who bring Africa to democracy are the ones who keep Africa from getting the development. A vote, you can waive that. So they give you a right to choose between two hand-chosen options from the same system of oppression. How can that be democracy? How can that be democracy? You must refocus your effort not on the right to vote or the right to choose a black face in a high place, but the right for black economic power so you can create your own reality. The reason black people seek to integrate with white people isn't because we love them, but we recognize they have the resources. Give us an equal share of the resources and they can keep their apartheid because we will want ours also. Unapologetically African. Our children have to be taught what that means. Not just to love being African, not just to know about African, but to be electrified spiritually with your Africanism. When I travel the world, and I'm more traveled than any other scholar in the United States, whether it's in France, where I was last week, or Manchester 3 weeks ago, keynoting the 1945 70th anniversary commemoration, when so many of the Pan-African freedom fighters from Africa went to Manchester, England. The ANC was there as well. Jomo Kenyatta, Kwame Nkrumah, W.E.B. Du Bois, Amy Ashwood Garvey, Rossi McCone, and the list goes on. So this was the 70th year of that. So they had a big commemoration there. There was two issues of contradiction that constantly came forward that was never resolved. One of them was the role of non-Africans in the struggle of African people. It was never resolved. And the other was the role of sexually confused Africans in the struggle for African people. I'm going to touch on them both briefly. But let me preface this by saying, if anyone here is a sexually confused African, I do not hate you. I am not against you. I may disagree with your behavior, but I still love you as an African. We all came out of apartheid and slavery with all types of mental shortcomings. Homosexuality is just one of many. But although I may love you, I have the right to criticize your behavior. And the reason I am against sexual confusion is because sexual confusion is being used by the World Population Council. It's being used by Planned Parenthood. It's being used by the European powers of the world to reduce the population of Africans on this earth, because two men cannot have a baby, neither can two women. This is not about love. It is not about romance. It is not about culture. It is not about family. It's about the extermination of African people. In America in 1972, there was a secret meeting between Planned Parenthood International, the Rockefeller World Population Council, the World Health Organization, and many other population control junkie organizations. They strategized that we need something to suppress not only the black agenda, but also the black population. Up until '73, homosexuality was a mental disease. Every state in America considered homosexuality to be against the law, every single one. But after '73, they changed it. They took it out of the diagnostic manual of mental illness so they could use the homosexual minority issue to trump the black minority issue. After Dr. King's assassination, not even a few months after it, the homosexual agenda became the primary agenda in black America, pushing the issues of black people to the side. White supremacy is slick. They're always looking for alternative movements to put in front of you so they never have to deconstruct racism. You cannot feed into that, South Africa. Being gay is not more important than being black. Listen, gay people never had to fight for the right to be people. Gay people never had to fight for the right to be people. Gay people have never been systematically oppressed. Gay people have never, ever been punished for wanting to be free of oppression. But Africans have. You have to be very careful about elevating other people's struggle to the level of yours. You're not oppressed because you're gay first, you're oppressed because you're black first. The white homosexual can't stand a black homosexual any more than a white heterosexual can't stand a black heterosexual. We have to get our priorities in order. Correct. And you don't let an outside group come within our community and try to play us against each other. If we want to debate homosexuality, debate it in private. You don't debate it in the presence of your oppressor. Brothers and sisters, the other issue is the role of white folks. I'm a Garveyite, so I have no hang-up about whether white people should be in the movement or not. And when you study the history of W.E.B. Du Bois and his Pan-African Congresses, you will represent or understand. It's all black people, I'm not interested. That's why we love to be integrated. As Garveyites, what do we believe? Number one, that we identify in anything else. We African first. African before you Zulu. African before you Xhosa. African before you Yoruba. African before you Muslim. African before you Christian. And why? Because the that what is possible for other groups is possible for us. We've been conditioned to think that they're greater. So if you let them in the movement, you will automatically start looking to them for leadership, and if nothing else, the economic financing of your freedom. Look at all the black Pan-African groups who are being funded by white folk. It's absolutely disgusting. Even in America, red, black, and green with white money. What bigger contradiction is that? So we must do it ourselves. We also believe that the central government for African people, and only the Garveyite stands on this. No other group of Pan-Africanists are as adamant. We believe that the central government for African people, the United States of Africa, a Garveyite concept, must be based in Africa. Many Pan-African groups around the world, they don't want to come back to Africa. They say they love being black, but they don't want to go to the source of blackness. They'd rather get President Obama to give them 5 states in the South. Give me Alabama, South Carolina, give me Texas. I don't like white supremacy, but I want to live right next to white supremacy. Look at the contradiction. When Marcus Garvey got deported from America in 1927, Pan-Africanism in the Americas went down. It took a hit because all the leaders who came after Garvey took us somewhere else. They didn't keep pushing Pan-Africanism. I love all the leaders of those movements who came after Garvey, but they brought us Islam. They brought us Christianity. They brought us socialism. They brought us Hebrewism. Nothing wrong with that. But where is the Pan-Africanism? That's the solution. As Pan-Africanists, what do we believe? We believe that in order to solve the problems of African people, here, there, and everywhere, they must be solved together. The South African contradiction will never be overcome without the support of the UK. The UK contradiction will never be overcome without the support of the United States. The United States contradiction will never be overcome without the support of Jamaica. You're fighting global white supremacy. We're fighting global white supremacy. London's fighting global white supremacy. How can you beat a global enemy when you're locally and regionally organized? So whenever blacks rise up against white supremacy in South Africa, the French come to help the British. The Portuguese come to help the British. Israel comes to help the British. They all come together. But when the black man fights, he gets no resources from his own. He has to fight in isolation. And if we don't learn to stand together globally, hands across the Atlantic Ocean, we will perish separately as fools. We rise as one or we don't rise at all. Your student protests, imagine when they walked out. What would have happened if the Africans in London would have walked out the same day, same time, same minute? With those in America, same day, same time, same minute. Australia, Jamaica, Cuba, Haiti. Imagine. You would have exhausted the resources of white supremacy. Remember, we're the world's most populated group. So if you rise together, what if the struggle for apartheid was linked with the American struggle for civil rights, linked with the British struggle for black power? If you would have linked them all together, you would have overwhelmed the resources. So we as Pan-Africanists say, trying to do this by yourself is a folly because you can't beat global white supremacy from a regional perspective. A global enemy requires a global collective, and that global collective is revolutionary Pan-African nationalism. It's amazing how outside of Africa, no matter where I go, so many African people think they can somehow fix their race problem without including Africa or without identifying as being African. Some of you may not know this, but the reason why a lot of us out of the continent call ourselves black instead of African is we want to recognize that we're not white, but we don't want to recognize from where we came. So black, an adjective, becomes more important than being African, a noun. You would identify with a color, but you won't identify with history. You'll identify with a shade, but you won't identify with culture. You'll identify with a variation of gray, but you won't identify with the freedom fighter history of your ancestral homeland. And when you study the ideologies outside of Africa, you will find that most of them cater to the black man's hatred of Africa. Most of the leaders gave him different names. You're not African, you Asiatic. You're not African, you indigenous. You're not African, you this. Anything but a connection with the mother continent. But even when I come here, I find some of y'all got the same problem. You'd rather be colored than be African. You'd rather be black than be African. Your self-hate is just as bad in Africa than it is outside of Africa. Brothers and sisters, as Garveyites, we believe that however you worship your supreme ruler of the universe, that supreme ruler of the universe must be worshipped in your shade, not the shade of your oppressor. Whenever your deity looks like your enemy, you're volunteering to be a slave. No people has ever come out from under oppression worshiping an image of Jesus, Muhammad, or anybody else that looks like you, you'll never be free. That painting came to us in 1482 by Leonardo da Vinci. Same year the Caucasian built the Elmina slave dungeon in Ghana. The same year they painted the Last Supper. And that Last Supper, that white Jesus and those 12 pedophiles remains the #1 weapon against the black consciousness today. Because what you have to recognize is pictures are 50 times more powerful than words. You can teach a child all day that Jesus was an African, but if they look up and see Jesus as the Caucasian, the brain will register the image, because the language of the brain is images. Whoever controls your images controls your world. That's why wherever the European goes, the first thing he does is put a big ugly cracker up on the top of the mountain somewhere, because in order to control the people, you got to control the data that goes into the mind. Speaking of data, in America we got a big problem. There's a war against traditional African family structure because of the lesbianism and the homosexualization of black males in America, where they're now teaching gay studies in Chicago and gay studies in California. They're now putting out movies that show black children nothing but the worst aspects of a relationship with a black man or a black woman. So we got the Tyler Perry movies all over the place. Why did I get married first? Why did I get married here? Temptation, this, that. And when you look at a Tyler Perry movie, every black woman is sick and every black man is sick. Don't nobody get along or like each other. That's not for you. That's for your children. That's for the 8, 9, and 10-year-old to say, why do I want to be with a black man? Is this how he acts? Why do I want to be with a black female? Is this how she acts? And at the same time, they attack traditional black family structure. They promote non-traditional homosexual family structure. The top show in America right now is Empire. Lucius Lyon and Cookie. I know you watch it, don't lie. Look at this now. Look at this now. You have 4 major black male actors in the same miniseries, the #1 miniseries in the country. You have Lucius Lyon, you have Hakeem, you have Jamal, you have Andre. Look at this. Lucius Lyon can't stand his baby mom. Only uses women for what he can use them for. You see Hakeem, hyper masculine, can't stand women, just uses them and throws them out. You see Andre, married to a white woman. You understand? Eurocentric bourgeoisie Negro. And then you have Jamal, hyper feminine, in love with a white male. How can you have 4 black men in the same mini-series and not a single one has a positive relationship with a black woman in the whole show? You got to read between the lines, South Africa. You got to read between the lines. The white man knows that he can't just put it in words no more, so he put it in pictures. I'll give you a case in point. Normally when you see a man with a woman in an image, the woman is normally laying on the man's chest. But the next time you see the image of an African man with a woman, especially a non-African woman, notice that the man has been effeminized and he leans on the woman's chest. They do this all across the world. In America, whenever they want to advertise something, services from different countries, telephone service. For France, they'll show Napoleon. For Britain, they'll show the Queen. For India, they'll show Gandhi. And for Africa, they'll show a gorilla. And you don't even recognize it. You just keep on moving because the racism is in the symbolism now. Guess what else they do in South Africa? They bringing in these Chinese and even more East Indians in South Africa since apartheid. Why so many since? Same thing they did in America after slavery. To do what? Replace you in the economic sector. It's hard to exterminate a people who you still need to work for you. So in order to exterminate the South African, you have to first render them absolutely useless in your economic order. Once you don't need them to work no more, then you can wholesale massacre them. The same thing they're doing in black America. That's why prisons are so big in America, because they systematically unemployed the black male to the point that the black woman don't even want to be bothered with him. And sisters, you got to be careful. Don't buy into the propaganda from the white man that the black man is no good. The black man suffers from the same situation you suffer from, and that is white supremacy. He's not unemployed because he wants to be. He's unemployed because there's no economic opportunity out there. But in America, even here in South Africa, because I heard some of them oppose me coming here, the black feminists Using a white female mind product to approximate a black struggle. I don't have a problem with a black woman fighting sexism in the black community, but do it as an African woman. It's not as a white reactionary feminist. Feminists make the man the scapegoat for that problem. And I understood white feminism because the white man told the white woman, you can't work, you can't leave the house, can't go to church, can't wear pants, can't have a job, can't go to college. He controlled her because he controlled the society. The black man does not control South Africa. So how can he be in a position to systematically oppress black women? We fight together as man, woman, and child. Our thing is African family, not gender-specific individualism.
Yeah,
I heard y'all have a rainbow nation. In America, since President Obama was elected, we've been told we're post-racial. Now the police are killing one black man a day in America. A black man a day, but we're post-racial. Well, you know where this is coming from. Rainbow nations, post-racial societies. All this means is white supremacy is trying to remake itself in such a way that the new racism is to act like there is no racism. When they start talking about multicultural, you got to look closer. The racism is there. Instead of the white man beating down black South Africa, he's going to use the East Indian to beat down black South Africa. He's going to use the white homosexual to beat down black South Africa. Multiculturalism was created to attack African-centered struggle and education. Multiculturalism in America was created by racists to attack the African-centered view of world history. So the minute you start talking about you're a multiculturalist, you reduce our struggle to the level of anybody else. Don't fall for these white ideologies. None of them are good for you. Capitalism and socialism. Throw them both in the trash and create your own economic system for Africa. What the hell can Karl Marx tell you? They want a rainbow nation. They can make a rainbow. It's real quick. All they have to do is take all the wealth of South Africa, that's sitting with the Oppenheimers and the De Beers, Anglo Gold, all these corporations have been robbing you blind since the beginning days of apartheid. You have to take all the wealth of South Africa and redistribute it equally so that every black African in South Africa has an equal chance as the richest white person to build a future for them and their children economically. Until then, Rainbow Nation is a joke. How can 87% of South Africa's wealth be in the hands of 14% white folk who are richer than the bottom 30 million black Africans, and you got a nerve to tell me I'm free now? What exactly am I free to do? Get drunk? Free to date white women? What am I free to do? Break the law? Free to go to college? That ain't no freedom. There can be no freedom without economic opportunity. So y'all next great fight is not for votes, not for another black president. Your next great fight is for your share of South Africa's wealth. That's your next great fight. You don't become equal because somebody said so, and you don't become equal by voting. You become equal by having equal power. That's equal political power, which grows out of equal economic power. Same thing in America. Slavery ended in 1865. In fact, December 6th, we celebrate 150 years since the end of slavery in America. This is our 150th. When slavery ended, we own 1/2 of 1% of all the wealth in America. Today, 150 years. There's only a we. And we got to get back to that. Your basic level of identity must be the people, not yourself. Because when a basic level identity is yourself, then you automatically see every other African as a competitor for what it is you want to be. That's why we need our own schools. Back in America, people said he wants to build a school with all the power he got. Why he only want to build a school? Umar should be building an army. You know why I can't build an army before I build a school? Because the purpose of the school is to recondition the minds of our children. If you build an army right now in East London, I guarantee you in 30 days the army will be fighting each other. Because we've been taught by the white man to self-destruct. In fact, the next time they give out a Nobel Peace Prize Award, don't give it out for science, don't give it out for chemistry, don't give it out for politics, don't give it out for the next computer.
give it out to the white man who invented the Negro. Because the Negro is the greatest invention of the white man. An African who works against his own best interests without even being paid to do so. The most important job of a school is not to teach. The most important job of a school is to socialize. When you went to the schools in the townships in South Africa, some of you probably didn't learn much, but you learned who Jan Smuts was. You learned who Cecil John Rose was. You learned the national anthem of Britain. You learned about the history of the Queen. Because the purpose of school is not to educate. It's to socialize. To fit you where they want you to be. True education is revolutionary. True education makes the oppressed the oppressor. True education creates intellectual revolution in preparation for material, political, and economic revolution. If the schools in South Africa are not creating an intellectual insurrection, then they are furthering and promoting white supremacy. Education is never neutral. Pedagogy, curriculum, epistemology is never neutral. It is either freeing you or enslaving you. There is no in between. Some of you may know that in America, we're trying to build the first of several Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey academies. And I'm only checking this to check my time. We want to build the first of several Frederick Douglass and Marcus Garvey academies. And then after we open them for the boys, we want to open up the Anna Douglass and Amy Garvey academies for the young African sisters. The reason I see this because as a psychologist and as an educator, I know you can't get a new African reality until you get a new African mind. Y'all want to have a military revolution before you had a psychological one. You want to have an economic revolution before you have a psychological one. You can go out here, build an all-black strip mall, nothing but black businesses in it from top to bottom. And I guarantee you, in 2 years it'll have a for sale sign on it, because black South Africa will still buy from the white man, because we've been taught his ice is colder than our ice. If you don't change the mind, you don't change nothing. So yes, I'm starting with the school. And those of you with the study group movement, I commend you. I'm going to tell you why. Because YouTube has killed the black study group movement. Instagram, Twitter, websites, they have killed the black study group movement. 30 years ago, because we didn't have all this, we were forced to come together like this and have a conversation. Now social network is there. So the white technology serves as a buffer between me and my brother, me and my sister. So guess what? The technology is not bringing us closer together. It's pushing us further apart. Listen, study group. When you study any revolution, you will see that they all had study groups. Not just the black ones. Asian, Arab, white man, they all had study groups. Because what good is a courageous soldier who is miseducated and misinformed? But not only that, study groups serve more than an intellectual purpose. When you study with people, you get to see their contradictions. When you study with people, you get to see their personality. When you study with people, you get to see their emotional temperaments. Before I studied with you, I thought you was unapologetically African. After I studied with you, I realized you had a white wife. And black men, why don't you need a white wife? I'll tell you why. If you couldn't have the white man before 1994, why you want to after? Yeah. But not only that, when a woman and a man comes together, that's an economic institution that was just made. Marriage is economic, not just emotional and familial. Women live longer than men. So your black wife or your white wife is likely to outlive you, brother. So when you leave this earth, whatever you leave of your wealth or your income, your savings, your property, there will be a woman to dispose that. Now be honest with yourself. What white woman in East London, if you die, is going to take your estate and give it to African people so they can build themselves up? When Michael Jordan died, that white woman he married ain't giving a penny to black folks. when Tim Duncan dies, when Taye Diggs dies, when James Earl Jones dies, when Sidney Poitier dies, and I don't wish it on none of them. Psychologically, they already dead. But when they going for real, when they going for real, Michael Jordan is worth billions of dollars. Sidney Poitier is a multi-millionaire. You're married to a white woman? So let me get this right. These people that robbed and raped and stole from us for centuries, and you're going to give them an economic stimulus package. On top of all you stole from black folks, he's going to give you more. There's no greater act of treachery than for a black man to not be with an African woman. Our children need to see good examples of healthy, strong African families. We don't need no more mixture, because when you get a mixed kid, you get a mixed up mind. I'm not knocking our biracial brothers and sisters. They still belong to us. Because when a black man lays with a white woman, or a black woman lays with a white man, God forbid, sister, but if you do, the product of that is not biracial. We are the dominant gene as Africans. Whatever we touch is an African. So there's no half black, half white child. Every child that comes from an African mix is a 99.999% African. Ain't no mixed game. But the white man created a structure where if you mix, you think you higher. Where you mix, you think you better. Not all of our biracial brothers and sisters have fallen into that. Look at Malcolm X's skin tone. Look at John Brown Rushmore, one of the first significant Pan-Africanists in history from Jamaica. Look at Bishop Henry McNeil Turner, first black man to say God was a black man. Elijah Muhammad went to a school as a child, and Marcus Garvey got some of his ideas from him. He was mixed. So you don't automatically castigate an African because the mother is white or the father is white. But we got to recognize, through our history, the white man has used his half-breed children as a source of oppression against us. So we have to stop participating in that behavior because it does not benefit us at all. Black woman, you got to get so strict that when a black man dates a white woman, he can't come back to you no more.